ng puso sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyang ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisi.
For the children who were born into this world of conflict and violence, for women and mothers who suffered needlessly, Lord, hear our prayer. For the healers who found the courage to tell the world their truths about the Battle of Manila, for the children who cried in their beds at night, reliving the horrors of what they had seen done to family and loved ones, for the mothers and fathers who tried to explain the unexplainable, Lord, hear our prayer. For all the children who have died before their time, for the soldiers who allowed their uniform to strip them of their humanity, for the redemption of the souls of both victim and perpetrator, for those who commit themselves to the forgiveness of sins, Lord, hear our prayer. Amen.
Thank you very much for that invocation, Chari. I think she covered all the victims and perpetrators. Again, as we hold this ceremony, this is a particular ceremony to honor and remember the civilian victims of that battle that took place 81 years ago.
Good morning and welcome. Thank you for coming to Memorare Manila's 1945's 81st commemoration of the Battle of Manila. It is at this time every year that we remember more than 100,000 innocent civilian casualties that were mercilessly killed in that 1 month that began on the 3rd of February in 1945. Many died from the shells that came from the U.S. battleships as they commenced their invasion from Manila Bay. Civilians had nowhere to run and no way to hide from those powerful weapons. But many more were tortured and killed brutally by Japanese troops who were left behind to fight to the last man, with instructions to kill as many as they could, using any and all means to accomplish the cruel task. We also remember the innocent victims who survived that month, having witnessed their families, some lost their entire families, friends and fellow human beings being bayoneted, beheaded, burned, beaten, shot, stabbed, and senselessly killed. Some of these victims are here today with us. May I just name Mrs. Feli Safra Reyes, she's all the way at the end on the first row, and Mr. Leopoldo de Guzman. It is because of them that many experiences were recorded. Many other survivors have already left this life. Among those who survived, we remember in particular and with gratitude those who made this memorial site possible in 1995 when they commissioned the beautiful bronze sculpture behind me, right now behind the flowers, at the end of the Plazuela de Santa Isabel. They left us a place where we and the generations that follow us can remember and never forget. Again, Memorare Manila 1945, its members and Board of Trustees, thank you for your time and your presence. May we never, ever forget. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opening remarks. We now follow with a special message from Japan, from Hiroshima City University, my old friend, Professor Hitoshi Hara.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Hitoshi Nagai, and I'd like to express my sincere gratitude for your invitation to attend today's ceremony. This year marks the 70th anniversary of the normalization of Philippine-Japan diplomatic relations. It's my great honor to deliver a speech at the commemoration of Memorare in this symbolic year. I would also like to express my gratitude to Ms. Desiree Benipayo and Professor Ricardo Jose for providing me with this opportunity. Furthermore, I express my deep respect for the many years' effort of the Memorare Manila 1945 Foundation that continues to strive to preserve the history of the Battle of Manila in records and memories. I have interviewed many war survivors and their families in both of the countries. The interviewees include Filipinos who experienced the Battle of Manila. I would like to express my gratitude to Ambassador Juan Rocha, Ambassador Miguel Perez Rubio, Ms. Emma Halanilla, Mr. Edgar Colon, Ms. Ruby and Aleli Quirino, Mr. Cyril Jose, and others for sharing their story with me. In the interview in 2011, Mr. Rocha told me the atomic bombing of Hiroshima is known throughout the world, but it's very regrettable that the Battle of Manila is not well known. In fact, it seems that the Battle of Manila is not widely known in my country as well. However, I would like to introduce here the Japanese who have focused their attention on the experiences of the Filipinos during the Battle of Manila. One of them is Miss Kyoko Takeda. She stayed in Manila for a week in September 1951 after a conference in Europe due to aircraft failure. She was a Christian and fluent in English and was invited to the homes of Manila citizens almost every day. She heard about the hardship of Filipinos being treated badly by the Japanese soldiers during the war and was asked why was the Japanese so cruel. Ms. Takeda was shocked by the story and published an article about her experiences in Manila after returning to Japan. In the 2000s, The NHK interviewed Filipinos who experienced the Battle of Manila and made 2 Japanese TV programs titled Testimonies of the Battle of Manila and Hatred and Forgiveness. Additionally, I would like to mention Professor Satoshi Nakano and Ms. Naoko Jin and her group Bridge for Peace, who have introduced the war memories from Filipino perspectives to Japanese society. I would also like to mention Ambassador Ichiro Yamazaki, who was the first Japanese ambassador to the Philippines to attend the ceremony of the Memorare in 2006 and express his apologies to the victims of the Battle of Manila. Finally, I want to introduce the remarks of Emperor Akihito, who visited the Philippines in 2016. Just before departing for the Philippines, the Emperor spoke to Japanese government official at Haneda Airport as follows. During World War II, countless Filipino, American, and Japanese lives were lost in the Philippines. A great many innocent Filipino civilians became casualties of the fierce battle fought in the city of Manila. This history will always be in our hearts as we make this visit to the Philippines. The Emperor rarely mentioned specific overseas battles in his remarks. Therefore, his reference to the Battle of Manila notably drew the attention of Japanese people. What the Japanese people introduced here have in common is the fact that they visited the Philippines and interacted with Filipinos. They listened to the stories of Filipinos, learned about the war damage that Japan inflicted on them, and felt that the Japanese should know this history. I believe it is important that Filipinos and Japanese interact, exchange their views, and learn from each other about the history of war, and that such dialogues should be regarded as crucial for deepening our mutual understanding. In closing, I wish the Memorare Manila Foundation success in the further development and extend my best wishes for happiness of all participants here. Thank you very much, and maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much for that message, Toshi. I forgot to read his short biography, so just to put him in proper perspective, Nanay's son is a professor at Hiroshima City University. His father was actually a survivor of the bombing. He majors in modern Japanese history, mainly focusing on the Japan-Philippines relations. He was a visiting fellow at the Ateneo Center for Asian Studies some time ago, and he's the author of The War Crimes Trials and Japan-Philippines Relations, probably the best book on Japanese war crimes trials in the Philippines, which is in Japanese and I hope will be translated in English and will be published for us to read. He's also the author of Philippines-Japan Relations, a book that I was part of many years ago as well. Now, we move on to the next message. We have a special message from the U.S. Embassy in Manila. Acting Deputy Chief of Mission is Charlene Fitzgerald.
It is an honor to join you all today to commemorate the 81st anniversary of the Battle of Manila. The city remains a sacred landscape, a place where 8 decades ago, the crucible of war forged an unbreakable bond between Americans and Filipinos. 81 years ago, the smoke finally cleared over the ruins of Intramuros and the surrounding districts, marking the end of one of the most brutal urban conflicts in modern history. This ceremony is a solemn reminder that while the guns eventually fell silent, we must never let the echoes of those who suffered and sacrificed fade into the past. During the 3.5 years of occupation, the Filipino people endured unimaginable hardship. Yet even in the depths of hunger and fear, they did not turn their backs on their American friends. This unwavering loyalty remains a powerful testament to the soul of our relationship. While their own families face starvation, Filipinos risked everything to smuggle food, medicine, and hope to American prisoners. They formed clandestine networks under the very noses of the occupation forces, knowing that discovery meant certain death. These selfless acts of courage are etched into our shared narrative. We honor those who stood with us during this dark time at great personal risk. To understand the true ravages of the battle, we need only to look through the stories of families who were caught in the crossfire. One such story is that of the Sequia family in Leyte. As the battle reached a fever pitch in February 1945, their home, once a place of refuge, became a target of horrific violence. Like so many Manila residents, they were forced to endure the Redeemer's fire and the systematic destruction of their neighborhood. Amid the shelling and the loss of loved ones, the survivors showed a staggering resilience and the Bayanihan spirit. They did not just wait for rescue. They assisted wounded neighbors and guided American soldiers through the treacherous, debris-strewn streets. Their experience underscores a painful truth. The liberation was not just a military maneuver. It was a human tragedy and a human triumph, paid for dearly by the civilians of this city. Beyond providing direct aid, Filipinos fought fiercely alongside American forces. Guerrilla units, operating with limited resources and facing brutal reprisals, harassed supply lines and gathered the vital intelligence that paved the way for the Allied return. The liberation of Manila was hard-won. American and Filipino soldiers fought side by side, but victory would have been impossible without the extraordinary courage and support of the Filipino people. The bonds forged in the ruins of 1945 between uniformed soldiers and brave civilians were the first step toward what is now the ironclad U.S.-Philippines alliance. Today our partnership stands strong, built on mutual respect, shared values, and a common commitment to peace in the Indo-Pacific. As we face the complexities of the 21st century, we draw constant inspiration from our shared legacy of courage and friendship. To Memorare Manila 1945, thank you for your tireless work in preserving this vital history. You ensure that future generations understand the weight of the sacrifices made in these streets. Let us never forget by continuing to build a future of peace, freedom, and enduring partnership. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much.
What happened here more than 8 decades ago harbors lessons for people and leaders of all nations, particularly as we watch what is happening today in Europe. As CBS News correspondent Bill Dunn once observed, quote, "The Manila of 1941 was a unique Manila. A Manila that had never before existed, a Manila that would never exist again. Few cities in the world have suffered like Manila. The former Pearl of the Orient, once a star of steamship ads and tourism brochures, endured 3 brutal years of Japanese occupation following the withdrawal of American forces. During that time, enemy troops harassed residents, commandeered homes, and looted department stores. Grocery store shelves sat empty and fields were left to rot. The Japanese so mismanaged the Philippine economy that it led to widespread starvation and the unraveling of the nation's social fabric. To survive, many resorted to thievery, including the plundering of graves in search of jewelry, dentures, eyeglasses, even clothing, anything that could be bartered or sold to buy a fistful of rice. Desperate parents, meanwhile, abandoned their children to orphanages or even sold them, while loving wives sold themselves, all to survive. The liberation of Manila, which most hoped would at long last bring an end to the years of misery, instead only compounded that tragedy. Japanese forces, rather than evacuate the Philippines Manila as Douglas MacArthur had done, instead hunkered down inside Intramuros. A number of government buildings, homes, and hospitals, even Rizal Memorial Stadium. In a battle fought building by building, even room by room, American troops had no choice, but in the words of one Army report, to, quote, exterminate the enemy in place. Amid this ferocious fighting, Japanese soldiers committed some of the worst atrocities in World War II. Troops tossed babies in the air, skewering them on the steel tips of their bayonets. Others torched entire neighborhoods, decapitated men by the hundreds, and raped scores of women. American forces did their share of damage as well, firing 42,000 mortar and artillery rounds into the city, including about 25% of those into the walls here in Intramuros. But the guns finally fell silent on March 3rd, 1945, 29 days after the American cavalry rolled into the city. Manila was gone. The battle to liberate the capital and flatten 613 city blocks, an area containing more than 11,000 homes, schools, churches, and businesses. Quote, there seemed nothing left even to mourn, recalled journalist Abraham Hartendorf at the time. Manila, he observed, quote, remained a name only. Beyond the structural losses were the cultural ones. Gone were the centuries-old Spanish churches. Gone were the museums filled with paintings, nice catch. Gone the paintings and sculptures. Gone were the libraries and archives that housed priceless literary works and historical records of the nation. The battle not only robbed Manila of its past and its heritage, but also its future. Amid the rubble and wreckage lay the lawmakers and doctors, the teachers and inventors, the moms and the dads. That priceless human capital, those men and women upon whose shoulders have once rested the future of a soon-to-be independent Philippines. The Battle of Manila was unlike most others of World War II, a battle born almost entirely on the backs of civilians, on the men, women, and children. 100 Filipinos died for every one American soldier. 6 Filipinos died for every one Japanese. Even though more than 8 decades have passed since the last shot was fired, the Battle of Manila still echoes today. The scars can be found throughout the city, from the once blood-stained walls in the Chapel of De La Salle to the empty lot where the German club once stood. Just a few blocks from here sits the rebuilt cathedral, and of course the battle-scarred San Agustin. Beyond the physical scars are those soft tissue wounds of grief and sadness that never truly heal. Angie Abad Santos, in a Memorare questionnaire filled out a half-century after the war, captured the suffering of so many when she described the ache she still felt over the loss of her father and her brother. Quote, the pain is still there, she wrote. The nightmares are still there, the dreams that they may suddenly come back alive and well. I have had those for the last 50 years. Even though the United States and the Philippines have long since repaired relations with Japan and moved on, it is imperative that we remember and that future generations learn precisely what happened here. That's why the mission of Memorare is so vital, now more than ever, as the survivors of that time sadly dwindle. But it has been through their years of dogged work that we have this beautiful statue behind us here in Intramuros, the historic heart of Manila, and where more than 4,000 people were killed during that battle. Those such monuments, as well as books, lectures, and symposiums, we can continue to preserve and highlight the story of the civilian sacrifice during the city's liberation. Manila, after all, is an example of the tragedy and the futility of war, a reminder not only of lives lost, but of lost opportunity. Daniel Burnham, in outlining his vision for the city more than a century ago, compared Manila to Naples, Venice, and Paris. And I've often wondered as I poured through historic photographs and maps what Manila would be like today, if not for those brief few weeks in February 1945, when the storm of war descended upon the Pearl of the Orient. Where would the city be had the Japanese not gone block by block burning Leyte and Ermita? Or if American howitzers had not reduced the once grand neoclassical buildings to rubble. Those 29 days are a fulcrum on which the history of the city and its people forever changed. And it is up to us today and the future historians, writers, filmmakers, and leaders to continue to tell this story. In closing, I want to recall the words of Severiano Aquino, one of the few survivors of the massacre of De La Salle. Caught by the Japanese on the second floor at the entrance to the chapel, Aquino was bayoneted so forcefully that the muzzle of the soldier's rifle penetrated his shoulder. Afterward, badly bleeding and wounded on the tile floor, he watched, powerless to intervene, as Japanese murdered his wife and his in-laws. During the years of my research, I read literally thousands of pages of victim statements and depositions. But it was a brief few words from Aquino in 1945 that I feel best summarized what happened in Manila and serve as a legacy of that battle. Quote, in a way, he said, we were all massacred. Only some of us were fortunate enough to have lived through it. Thank you very much.
"81 years have passed. Did the echoes of time, marked by unimaginable loss and sacrifice, remain? Time may have moved forward, but memory stands still here in our walled city. These walls, once witnesses to devastation, now stand as enduring reminders of both human vulnerability and resilience. They remind us of each and every individual, named and unnamed, whose voices were forever silenced and their future shattered amid the chaos of war. As we stand before this memorial and marker dedicated to the innocent victims and survivors of the Battle of Manila, we are reminded that this monument, though built of stone and steel, derives their true meaning from the living. Their purpose is fulfilled only when we choose to remember with sincerity, to reflect with humility, and to honor their legacy through our continued commitment to truth and remembrance. As the years move us further through these tragic events, the responsibility to preserve their stories become ours to carry, and to honor those who gave their lives with courage and selflessness. Today, more than ever, we ensure that their sacrifice is neither forgotten nor reduced to distant history, but remembered as a living reminder of the cause of peace. In the wake of immense loss, nations found strength in standing together. What arose from devastation was not only recovery, but a renewed spirit of cooperation that continues to remind us that peace is sustained when nations choose solidarity rather than division. We extend our sincere appreciation to everyone gathered here today, united in remembrance and reflection. In your presence, we see enduring courage and resilience of Filipinos, of members of other nations that continue to rise above adversity and guide us towards dignity, unity, and peace. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much. Mabuhay ang Intramuros. Mabuhay ang Memorare Manila 1945. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas.
two songs that were sung are particularly interesting. The first being spiritual, and then the second one emphasizing to us how frail we are in a roaring sea, a very rough sea, but we are all in the same boat and all in one bangka, and that we have to work together. So I think that's one underlying message for all of us today. 81 years ago, the battle was fought. We're here to remember that that should never happen again. And now, I'd like to acknowledge two of the survivors of the Battle of Manila, Feli Zafra Reyes in the front row. And the beautiful Jose Guzman. Very strong, very keen on sharing what they remembered, and they are part of a documentary program that we aired last year, Children of the War, which is being refashioned into an international one that will be for international release. So again, every inch of this area that we are in has stories. All of us are affected or were affected by the war, and so